do you believe U.S. policing is modeled after U.S. militarism, or do you think it's just some sort of coincidence?
No, there's nothing coincidental about this. I mean, I recently interviewed a gentleman who I think is wonderful. His name is Gardner Nixon. He's an ex-police officer, and he's black. And he was, multiple times we have had this discussion where we've come to the same agreement without even knowing. It's the fact is he knows firsthand that they'll send cops, like straight up, like things that they don't even ask for, like military gear and all of these things, right? And you have to take into context, right? We're the United States. We're the largest empire, recently described by one of these the Peruvian party that's running a leftist candidate as the most sanguine and bloodthirsty empire in history that has killed millions of people in the Middle East, right? We go around bombing black and brown people or enslaving with the Libyan slave trade. We destroy their countries. We impose sanctions. We stand by idly as Israel continuously bombs Syria and commits apartheid on Palestinians. I mean, this is what we do. This is what the empire was built on. It was built on the backs of slaves. It was built on stolen land from Native Americans. That's all history that a lot of Americans don't want to talk about. They just want to keep it in the past. But in order to move forward, we have to deal with that history. And it's because that's what we've done and what we always do. And this jingoistic culture of glorification of America, like, yeah, we're gonna go around the world and we're gonna spread democracy and it's good, we're saving people, we're saving Afghani women, right? We're gonna stay in Afghanistan, or we're gonna find a reason to stay in Afghanistan because the women need us. It's this whole idea of humanitarian aid, but it's not. It's not, because otherwise we'd be helping Yemen. So if we do that all over the world, if that's what this country is founded on, of course our police are going to be like that. Of course the people we hire are going to be like that. They're going to be yes people. Yes, you don't question, you just obey. And that's why I call them stormtroopers, because it like there's no questioning. When I've talked to police officers as a journalist, if they don't want you moving ahead and you're like, no, this is this and that, it doesn't matter. My sergeant told me no. I can't do it. No, it's no. There's no reasoning. There's no logic. There's no, it's that hive mentality of like, I have power over you. So it's not just racism. It's a power thing too. It's this status. Garland gave me a really great example of, he could walk into a gas station as a black man and they might think, oh, he's going to take something, and they might watch him closely. He walks into the gas station with a police uniform. Things start to change, right? And there are people like Oprah Winfrey who are never going to be shot by police officers, exactly. Right? There is a racial element, of course. There's racism in this country, but there's also now a power and a class issue with it as well that I think we all need to tackle, especially the protests. When I saw protests that were more organized and more attacking capitalism, I was like, yes, attack the system, because the cops are getting orders from somebody above them, right? The cops are being told what to do by somebody above them. Go to those people, and then the people above them, and then the people above them. Those are the moves that I think the movement needs to start heading to. And they're dangerous moves, of course, as we know what happens to people who really target imperialism.
Well, and it's amazing. You keep segueing into the next question, but as far as imperialism is concerned, so the United States government, I mean, we're seeing it with the pandemic. They do nothing but cut to give the American people crumbs, and they make cuts to everything that has to do with benefit the American people. But there's two areas that they just spend like drunken sailors, and that is the military industrial complex and the police states. Those budgets are always increasing almost every year, if not every other year, or every time they're up for funding. Why is it that these two particular areas, I mean, I know the reason, you know the reason, but explain this to my audience. Why is it that these two particular areas don't seem to catch the same. It doesn't have the same. It doesn't get cut at the same rate as some of the other categories by the government.
Right, because look, the whole point of the empire is to continue resource extraction. It's to continue expansion, but the difference from other empires, and not that it would be any better morally, is you're not seeing the benefits. Only a very small percentage of people are really truly seeing the benefits. Yes, there are benefits here that we get that in other countries they don't get comparatively, right? But at the same time, it's to maintain control and complacency. The more distracted and the more tired and the more overworked you are, the less you have time to pay attention, especially foreign policy. If I'm a person that has 3 jobs, I'm working all the time, and I care about putting food on the table, I care about rent, I care about, having health care. There's a reason why a lot of the left misses the mark when it comes to foreign policy, because that's how the system is designed. You can talk about being anti-capitalist, you can talk about DSA, you can talk about we need to end homelessness, all these things. But the thing is, all of that is directly related to our foreign policy, because all of that money is going into the war machine. And there's a reason why they go after kids in high school in the military, because I don't know if you know anybody who's ever signed up, but everybody I know have signed up. Oh, free education, free healthcare, benefits. And if you give that to people, guess what? You're not going to have the military that you need to continue doing the things you do. And so it's part of the whole system. It's an ecosystem, a very nasty, nefarious ecosystem that feeds on itself. And the more people are distracted by entertainment, television, reality TV, all these things, and the more they're just busy working, trying to keep up, they're going to look at their immediate concerns, shelter, food, etc. They're really not going to care what goes on outside of that, because that is your human biological need. You need to have your needs met first. And so that's the problem. And it's part of it, is a large part of it too, is the lack of healthcare in this system. We used to have an anti-war movement. We used to have the freedom schools. We used to have this sort of idea of the community providing. All of that was pushed out and made to be this sort of radical communist ideology. When I am a naturalized citizen, I remember I had to actually sign. You have to sign and say that you reject communism, that you reject anything like that. You have to say it's part of becoming an American.
What? In order for you to become an American, you actually have to sign something saying that you're not going to become a communist?
So it's like this whole list of things that you cannot do, or you could potentially lose citizenship, and you won't get it if you don't agree to all these things. You have to sign this document. One of the things is that you cannot support communism. You cannot. And it's right there. And a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't realize people didn't know this. I thought it was known that you have to completely dismiss communism, and that's it's crazy to think about, but that's what it is. It's this empire that we are a part of, and it's really hard to get people to wake up to it, because, for instance, people in the Middle East, they seem so far away. When you're talking about things like freedom of speech, that seems so like, what is that? What does that mean? I'm worried about my rent. I'm worried about having healthcare. Like, who cares about Julian Assange? This is the immediate concern of people, and I get it, which is why we have to understand how the system works. And the system is, of course, the number one concern is always going to be the military and the security, because the more rights they take away from you, the less privacy you have, the more they're, taking down profiles. They say, oh, it's going to be about the Trumpers. No, it's always about any radical insurgency, that anything they deem radical, right? And leftism, of course, is right there with it. In fact, they hate communism more than they hate anything else, any sort of right-wing ideology. And in fact, this is a right-wing country. Everything else is just it's pretend. It's the Democrat and the Republican Party playing pretend, when really we live in a right-wing country, and they much would rather have authoritarian right-wing dictatorship than they would have any sort of socialist communists, that we overthrow, regimes. Look at what we did to Bolivia. Look at how we influenced Ecuador. It's all Venezuela. All of this. It's not for nothing. I mean, we don't want the global South to have strength, especially with China on the rise and Iran and Russia against the NATO-backed allies, right?